Hi, guys. Welcome to this week's episode of The Rope of Hope. I am your host, Kimberly Plesia, and today I am joined by Dana. We are going to be discussing surviving childhood sexual abuse. So, that is kind of the trigger warning for anybody who this brings up stuff. I always try to be very sensitive with topics like that. So I do want to make people aware of the topic in advance. So that is today's topic. Dana, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Of
really grateful to
course.
be here.
Of course. So before we go into your story, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Yeah, I'm Dana Parker, and I am a life coach, and I'm founder of a company called Inner World Movement, and all about inner world healing for outer world results. I've been in the personal development world for 12 years now. My personal pain from the childhood sexual abuse really started me on this path and this journey 12 years ago, and it lit a fire in me, and that fire has just never gone out. And so I utilize that, all the things that I've learned. I mean, I spent 12 years trying lots of things and learned a lot of what to do, what works, and things that don't. And it's been a wonderful journey, that's been highs and lows and ups and downs for sure. So I'm a mom of 4 boys, and I love painting and cycling. Those are some things about me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and jump on in. I'm going to kind of let
Perfect.
you take the reins at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a little bit of maybe about my story and my background. As a child, from about 4 till about 9, experienced sexual abuse from different individuals in my life. And when something hit around 9 or 10 for me, where it just wasn't making sense to continue in the pattern. And so I actually stopped it. I stopped it and kind of clung to staying around people who were safe and adults, and then I didn't tell anyone. I was filled with a lot of shame for what was happening and what had happened. At that time in my life, there wasn't and I think just in our culture too, here in especially in Utah, I grew up in the Mormon culture. There's a lot of sex is a very hushed topic, and you don't talk a lot about it. And with that I think comes a lot of curiosity and also shame around the topic. And so I stopped it. I didn't tell anyone until I was 23. At 23, I actually was a mom of 2 little boys, and found myself emotionally numbing and eating on my couch and spending my days binge watching Netflix, and just felt this weight, this really heavy weight that I felt like at any moment could just burst open, and it actually did through a series of events. Um, I learned that the subconscious mind helps suppress our memories until it's ready to deal. And the moment I was ready to deal, I was getting flashbacks, and it's like this dam just broke open, and I was on this emotional roller coaster. And, I think anytime there's big traumas from our past that resurface, or anytime in our life we experience huge changes in our life, I'm noticing this pattern of a lot of emotional experience, like emotions that just keep coming and coming, like waves, and they don't really stop. And so what that did then was kind of put me on this journey of personal development, personal growth, and a commitment to healing, a commitment to, okay, no matter what, I deserve in my lifetime to experience healing from this. And so it put me on a path, and it's been quite an amazing journey. Quite an amazing journey.
So when you came to that point where you were ready to go through healing
Yeah,
and you actually said something,
great.
who was the first person you spoke to?
My mom. My mom and then a friend of mine were the first people that I told, and it felt like finally it was safe enough to say something. And it really, what was interesting is it brought up even more emotions with that, you know, the process of talking about it brought up even more. And you know, I learned now looking back, that's not a bad thing. It's what we do with that when it comes up that matters, and that's when you need tools, you know. And it wasn't a glamorous, you know, it wasn't a glamorous thing. There was a lot of curled up in a ball crying on the floor because it was so painful just to come to terms and to realization of what had happened and what I experienced, and realization that I was just starting the journey of healing. That was really hard too at 23 with two little kids, you know, as a stay-at-home mom. That realization that this could be a long journey, and it could be a long journey ahead, and I don't know what it looks like, but you know, dedicating my life to it because I knew that I was meant for something bigger and better than just emotionally numbing and eating and binge watching Netflix my life away. I knew that there was more, but that was my coping at the time. And so moving into more was just it was really empowering. The first class I ever took was probably one of the most significant moments for me. There were significant, you know, moments along the way, but that first course that I took just transformed my life.
So how did that healing process look for you? I know you mentioned courses, things of that nature. Was it something that you were able to become more open about as time progressed?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I think, you know, anytime anyone goes through trauma and still carries that trauma, we all have kind of a different, unique, just like our fingerprints are such unique to us, our healing journey is to us too. And so looking at it now, you know, I think some of the biggest things that really helped me was following my heart. You know, I would be the universe or God, however you want to call it, would bring opportunities into my life. And instead of shutting them out, I'd say, okay, how can I find a way to do that? Because I feel that that's my next step. And so taking action on what I felt was my next step to help me on my healing journey was really key, very key. That following your heart, following that intuition, and allowing the universe to support you in taking those healing steps. And you know, it's not easy. It's really difficult to face those things. It really did feel, the first time I talked about it at this personal development, I went to a personal development weekend where we talked about beliefs and ideas we hold true about ourselves, these stories we tell ourselves, and then tracking them back to where they originated from. And one of the first times we went to tracking it back, I froze. Like this puddle just froze with fear that if I actually went there, and I can still feel emotional about it now, but if I actually went there, that I would get lost in years of emotion, that I'd get lost in it and it would overtake me. And it was a scary moment as a 23-year-old that didn't know what, I was highly emotional, but I was never taught what to do with emotions or what they mean or how to learn from them. And so it just felt like I was jumping into this, you know, box that had been opened and I didn't know what was going to happen. And luckily I had a mentor in the weekend that took me aside in that moment, and she just wrapped her arms around me and was a listening ear in a safe space. And I got to, for the first time, tell a stranger what had happened and to feel love and compassion. It was a very profound moment for me because it's the right time, the right place, and the right person, which I think are all really important when sharing our stories. And sharing that in that moment with this beautiful mentor, this woman who had walked this journey even before me in her healing, it was such a good moment of, wow, that felt incredible to just let that out and to feel loved even in it, even in my brokenness.
So, and this goes along with, what you said of, everybody's journey looks different. I know with my personal journey, it seemed like when I would have that moment of healing or breakthrough, it was like a weight lifted off. Is
Yeah.
that something that was similar to what you went with or went through?
Yeah. So to me, this all this stuff that we carry, I like to explain it like this. We carry all of this, the traumas and ideas and thoughts about ourselves like in a backpack. And on our shoulders, on our heart, and it's so big. And some of them took years to create. Like this was years of hurt and pain. And in my childhood, when I was not a logical thinking adult and I was making up stories about myself and my body, and what it meant about me, that was the experience I was having with sexual abuse, that all of that, I was making up so many stories and I carried those stories and I had no clue. Most of us don't know the stories that are running. And so I like to think of it as like, these big boulders that we're carrying. And when we feel that weight lifted, a portion of that boulder goes. And I like to tell people, when you feel that, note that, because you just let go a part of what you've been carrying. Mm-hmm. And yes, you may experience similar emotions along the way, but you'll never have to do that one again. It's like I have 4 boys, and I had my last 2 were natural births. And that's how I got through the natural birth. It's like every pressure wave got me a little bit closer to the actual birthing time. Every contraction did. And I'd celebrate, once that pressure wave, there was a release from it. Then there was like, okay, I never have to do that one again. And that same thing with emotional healing, when we can celebrate those moments and celebrate like, oh, I let go. I'm so proud of myself. This is a good moment. And celebrate. I never have to do that one again specifically. And, you may have similar emotions along the way, but that's normal because it took years to create. And so it can take time to uncreate that and to step into something different. And that's normal. I think a normal part of the healing journey for everyone.
I agree. So through your healing journey, what was the hardest part?
I think the hardest part was facing the emotions, especially when I didn't have tools. Facing the emotions, I can still get emotional about it. Facing the emotions, because there's so much emotional pain that came from those experiences that no one else can feel it for me. No one else can do that work for me. No one else can I'll heal through those things. Only I can. And so facing the emotions and feeling like kind of the loneliness of that journey, which I know so many women can relate to, women and men. When you face those emotions, no one else can do it for you. I think that was one of the hardest parts, is learning that and understanding that. But, on the flip side, the most beautiful thing that came from it was my work. It fuels what I do now in my own work as a life coach and as a speaker, to connect with these individuals in their deepest, darkest moments and to love them and to say, here's what you do with that now. Here, yes, you had this emotional experience. Let me love you in it. And let me show you how to now let that go and move forward. It is, to me, I think one of the reasons why that happened was to help me, one, have a greater level of compassion and empathy for other people in their emotional journey. And 2, to help me understand emotions and be able to teach people how to understand their emotions. And 3, to really be the fuel. It's been a huge fueling factor in me fulfilling what I feel like I came here to do as a coach and a speaker. So I think that on the flip side, that's the beauty that comes from those experiences too.
So with your process of healing, and I know for me, this personally was one of the hardest things to do. Have you been able to forgive?
Yeah, forgive. I love that you asked this question because I think this is such an important and profound question, especially for those of us that experience abuse. I think forgiveness, I found on my journey, forgiveness is twofold. There's the forgiveness of the others, right? And I think that, I remember committing to that. I remember honestly the moment I committed to that. And that I will experience total forgiveness for these people. No matter what it takes, no matter how hard that journey is, no matter what, I will get there. That commitment, I think, is vital because you can say I forgive them, and then a couple weeks later emotions can come up, resentment, hurt, anger, frustration. It doesn't mean you didn't forgive them. It means that that's the emotion. Those are the things that are calling for love and healing to help you get to that goal, that point of forgiveness. And so I think forgiveness is an ongoing process that can happen. Two, I think that you have to have self-compassion and forgiveness. Just because you feel emotions that aren't forgiveness in a moment doesn't mean you haven't forgiven. Because if you commit back to, I'm going to get there and I'm okay that I feel anger and resentment and hurt right now, I think that is such a vital part of forgiveness, is that self-compassion and understanding of that was hard and it's okay if I'm still hurting and I'll get back to forgiveness. I'll get there. But right now, these emotions are what need my love. And so I think forgiveness is a process like that. And self-forgiveness is the most important. We judge ourselves the same way we judge others. And so to me, the more I loved myself in my mistakes and in my humanness, the easier it was to love other people. Now, with that, I do want to say one more thing that I think is so important for those of us that have been abused, or even recovering people pleasers, recovering perfectionists like me. Forgiveness and boundaries are so important.
Yes.
Vital, actually. I think they're vital partners. Forgiveness and boundaries, with healthy boundaries, because forgiveness without healthy boundaries, often you'll be re-injured again and again and again and again. And that's really hard to heal from. But forgiveness with boundaries, healthy boundaries, is going to get you to guarantee your results better for true lasting healing.
Yeah, it's completely life changing. Completely life changing.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And what I have found is by learning how to set those healthy boundaries within my own healing, it allowed me to set healthy boundaries within my entire life.
Yes.
And that just, like, I was mind blown for a little bit when I finally learned how to set boundaries.
Yeah.
But I think especially, when you go through this as a very young child, you have no clue that boundaries are even acceptable.
No.
You don't know what they are. You definitely don't know that you're allowed to establish them.
Yeah.
Or enforce them.
Agreed.
Because that is ripped from you.
Yeah.
So learning how to establish those boundaries within forgiveness, within healing. Yeah.
It's vital. And to that, I want to say too, as I've learned how to set boundaries and say no, and for myself say, it's healthy to say no. I remember one time I was in a class and I was talking to a friend and I said, this guy, he really just kind of creeps me out. This guy that keeps trying to talk to me and he was trying to give me hugs and things like that. I feel creepy around him. And I feel so bad. And she said, Dana, don't you ever feel bad for your intuitive feelings. You can love him from afar. You can be kind, but have your boundaries and follow your heart. If you feel like someone is not someone that you want to have in your space, you do not have to let them in your space. And I was like 20, I was just in my healing journey, probably 23, 24. That was the first time a grown woman gave me permission to say, no, I choose who gets to be in my sphere. I choose who gets to be in my energy and who I interact with. And I don't have to feel bad for my intuitive feelings about someone. Now, I can observe too. Like if we have certain ideas about somebody, it's always good to observe their patterns and habits before letting them in. That's always a really healthy thing. And with that, I think it's really important that we empower the next generation with words. You know, with my boys growing up, I would tell them all the time, you know, I would say, those are your privates, and if anyone touches it, you say no. You say no, and you walk away, and you come and tell mom, and I will hug you and love you, and I will be so proud of you. And giving them phrases, you know, if you don't want to hug someone, you don't have to hug someone. We don't force hugs. You hug somebody if you want to, if it feels right for you. You know, letting them have permission and giving them even the words to say no, to say that doesn't feel good. You know, that's often when I've trained my boys too. Even when they're fighting, I'll say, did you communicate that you wanted him to stop? Communicate that. Communicate with words what you want, so that he's clear.
I'm going to tag on to something that you just kind of brought up as well, is you mentioned that intuitive feeling.
Yeah.
Learning how to even recognize that intuitive feeling. Learning to recognize those red flags, as my mom used to call them. Because we don't.
Yep.
You know,
when we look over those, we always end up hurt and in trouble.
Well, not only that, but you know, as a child that's gone through this, you don't know what that red flag is.
Right.
You have no clue how to process what it is that you're feeling. Something's off, but you don't know what it is. You have no clue that is intuition telling you something.
Yeah.
So being able to learn how to recognize and acknowledge those red flags within yourself, huge.
I agree. It is, and it takes time, especially if you're used to overriding those and you're not used to following your heart or even tuning in. How am I feeling about this person? And a lot of times we'll feel certain things, but then we'll logic our way through it. Well, that doesn't make sense. I don't actually know that that's true. Well, there's an intuitive feeling that is on if you really listen. If you really listen, you will experience it over and over and over again. Things that you may not logically know, but your heart was telling you. Both need to be in alignment in relationships, your heart and your mind. The person that you're with or the people in your life, they need to make sense on paper. You know, these are the kind of people that I want to be around. These are the kind of people I want to fill my life with. And get clear on that on a logical level. And then there's the emotional part too. Does this person feel good? And taking our time to open our heart. That's okay too. I think that's important to observe people.
I agree. And I'm going to put this out there. If anybody is watching this, I apologize. My Amazon delivery is at my house, and my dog heard the doorbell.
You're good.
So if anybody is watching this, and you are in a situation that is beyond your control, a situation of abuse, be it physical, sexual, emotional, mental, speak up. Find a friend, find a family member, find somebody you trust, and speak up. There is no reason to suffer. There's especially no reason to suffer in silence.
Agreed.
There are so many people that are here to help and here to listen. If you don't have somebody that you feel you can speak to, please send me a message. I am happy to be an ear. I'm happy to be a shoulder for you to cry on, to help in any way I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dana, I want to thank you so much for coming on my show, for being so open and vulnerable, and for sharing your story. I do have one final question for you.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your story.
Okay.
What is the most inspirational thing that has ever been said to you?
That's such a good question. And what comes to mind is actually the Marianne Williamson quote. Have you heard it? Our deepest fear?
No.
Okay. Do you mind if I read it?
No,
I think
go
it'll
for it.
just be wonderful. She says, and this is my invitation, I guess, to anyone listening, is to step in and commit to your healing journey, and you will not regret it. And with that, I want to read this. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And I think that's probably been the most inspirational thing for me, is being around other women now, being around other people. I feel like people will mention all the time, it feels so refreshing to be around you, or you just have this space of trust. I just feel like I trust you so much. You're such a great empathetic listening ear. All of those things came from my deepest hurts and wounds. And those are skills that I learned and stepped into on purpose. And because I've been through some of the most heart-wrenching experiences in my life, I can be there for others in theirs. And I think that's the most beautiful gift that has come, is that's where real connection is. That's where real intimate connection between all of us that we're craving. It's in vulnerability. It's in those moments of vulnerability at the right time, right place, with the right person that can listen and that can love you in it. And I think that's been the greatest gift. And yeah, that's it.
I love that. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. If you have been moved by Dana's story or any other story on this podcast, and you would like to be a listener supporter and help keep this going and help encourage others, then all I ask is that you consider going to buymeacoffee.com/this fat girl life. That is where you can make listener donations. You can also do memberships where you will get member only content or sponsor only content. One of those content pieces being daily inspiration that I am going to be starting. So, as a listener sponsor, you will have access to that. You guys, I will see you next week. I hope you all have an amazing week. I love you guys.
Bye.